Welcome to the best of first-person episodes from Phantoms and Monsters. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified of all future uploads.
Bizarre fire snake. Just after dark one night I had occasion to go out to the barn to look after the horses. A public highway passes within yards of my house, and the barn is built about 20 rods from the house due south and somewhat near the road. I started from the house in the direction of the barn, and had gone perhaps half the distance when I noticed something playing along the ground that looked like a tremendous fire snake. The object crossed my path, and as it did so I felt the air grow much colder, and a peculiar, moaning sound arose, like the sighing of the wind through the trees, only it was loud enough to drown a man's voice when he would shout. Then I felt something come over me like electricity, and I became motionless as though I had grown fast to the ground. I was terribly scared, but I never lost the use of my hands or legs through fear, though there was something peculiar in the air that simply paralyzed me. When the thing had got perhaps 50 feet from me going west, it turned and came back, and as it did so the moaning sound changed to a shrill whistle, something like a locomotive would make, and when it got just in front of me, it took a course directly away from me and toward the barn. It traveled very rapidly and looked like a large ragged streak of fire, perhaps 30 feet long and 18 inches in diameter. The thing reached the barn and in almost an instant ran directly up in front of the building and onto the roof. I expected every moment to see the barn burst into flames, but it did not. The great fire snake ran with great rapidity all over the building, in almost every direction, up and down, crosswise and every way. I suppose, 1,000 times. It then came to the front of the building and elevated itself, and it stood straight on its tail fully 30 feet in the air. I was perfectly conscious all the time, but try as I would I could not move from the spot. After the thing had remained in an upright position for, I presume, 3 or 4 minutes there was a sudden explosion like the discharge of a cannon, and the thing disappeared entirely. With the disappearance of this strange phenomenon I felt a shock like the first one I had felt, and at the same time I gained control of my limbs. I hastened to the house, told my wife what I had seen, and she thought I was crazy, but upon my insisting she consented to accompany me to investigate the matter. You can imagine our surprise upon reaching the barn to find it covered with a remarkable network resembling large ropes of ice. They appeared to pass around the building in exactly the way the fiery monster had passed. It was not ice, however, but seemed to be more of a crystal, for it would not melt even when we held a flame to it, and when struck with a hatchet, it simply gave a dullish sound and did not break. Upon entering the barn we were amazed, as 2 good horses stood in their stalls immovable. They were alive, but neither could move a muscle. They seemed to be paralyzed and stood there more like statues than anything else. They were warm and breathed all right, but aside from this you could not tell they were alive. I applied the whip, and they never flinched. A dog that sleeps in the barn was dead and appeared completely petrified. He was lying on the ground with his head on his paws just like he was sleeping. When I left home this afternoon, everything was just as I have described it to you.
Huge short-snouted snake-like creature, Fort Myers, Florida. I'm a department director for a county in South Florida. I was traveling with another director to a meeting. We were on Palm Beach Boulevard, State Route 80, near the ramp to I-75. A traffic accident was blocking 2 of the 3 westbound lanes of State Route 80, and traffic was backed up and moving very slowly. To my right was a small lake. While the general area is heavily populated, the lake connects to the Caloosahatchee River, and eventually to the Gulf of Mexico. On the other side of the river is a large wildlife refuge. While sitting in traffic, my companion and I noticed a strange disturbance on the lake. I first thought it was a fish jumping. However, the disturbance grew. She suggested it was a manatee or dolphin. However, we ruled this out as manatees don't rise this high above the water, and there was no evidence of a dorsal fin. What we saw appeared to be something like a very large snake. I would estimate that it was close to the diameter of a telephone pole, though probably a little narrower, and could have been as much as 40 feet long. At some times it would disappear, and at other times it appeared as if it had multiple parts of its body rising out of the water at the same time. It looked almost like a very large snake, until it stuck its head out of the water. The head did not look like a snake's, it appeared to have a short snout. I did not see any fins, but my companion said she was certain she saw one fin. I thought the color too of the body was dark gray, but the head appeared to be brown. It was approximately 400 feet away from us throughout the sighting, and it remained circling around one area. Eventually traffic cleared and we had to drive on. I have lived in Florida for over 20 years. My companion has lived in South Florida all of her life. She and her husband have an offshore boat and often go fishing far out into the Gulf. Neither of us have ever seen anything like this.
Snake-like humanoid in the bathtub. Back in 2012, I went to the Dominican Republic to spend time with my parents. I'm a very social guy, so I made friends with a lot of the Dominicans as well as Haitians in the neighborhood. One night, I was hanging out with my new friends, and one of them decided to tell us what had just happened to a girl who we all recognize from the area. She was a prostitute, however in the Dominican Republic that's a way of living for some women, so others know what they do for work. Anyway, the story went like this. The girl was working a couple nights ago in a tourist area called Sosua. There she met a man from Europe who wanted her to spend the night with him, and she agreed. Prior to that they were enjoying the night, drinking and partying at a bar. After drinking lots of beers, they left the bar and headed for the man's place. When they got to his place they had sex multiple times and she fell asleep but woke up in the middle of the night because she didn't want to stay until the morning. However, she wanted to get paid for her services, so she looked around, but the man was not in the bed with her. She thought he was testing her to see if she was a thief and would go through his things, so she decided to leave the bedroom and go looking for him. She heard the shower running and decided to go into the bathroom. When she got inside the bathroom she saw a huge snake-like humanoid laying in the bathtub. She was so terrified that she screamed and bolted out of the house forgetting her clothes and ran all the way back to her house in the middle of the night naked. This girl I recognized and she did not want to talk about the incident and she was so traumatized that she feared telling the story to people. CBT.
Visited by a snake-haired being. I was working as an information technology contractor for MGM Studios during the year 2000. It was a lot of fun working there. Getting to see movie props such as the Stargate was an extra bonus. I was staying at the Georgian Hotel in Santa Monica during a major renovation. Having worked at MGM for a month, my contract was coming to an end. During my last night at the hotel, I woke up suddenly at approximately 3 a.m. Via the light from the window and the night light in the room, I could see something floating in the middle of the room. It was the head of something I've never seen and never want to see again. It was grotesque, a man's head with snakes as hair. Its skin, which looked to be dark green, seemed to be moving with smaller snakes. As I watched it, it moved its lips, as if it was trying to talk to me, but I couldn't hear anything. I could see the back of its head in the mirror on the wall in front of me. I really don't know how I knew to say this, but I told him it wasn't welcome and it had to leave. After saying this a few more times, it just slowly faded away. I got up and turned on the lights in the room. Working for MGM, I thought maybe one of the guys I was working with was playing a joke on me. I checked the whole room for anything that could produce this head image, but I found nothing. Needless to say, I didn't go back to sleep. When the time came to check out later that morning, I was too embarrassed to say anything. Heading into work one last time, I did ask the guys if they knew anything about it. They all said no and promised me they would never do anything so cruel. One of them did tell me that the hotel was in fact haunted. This incident has left me wondering just what it was I saw that night. I think it might have been a demon looking for someone to possess.
This is Lon Strickler. If you like this program, it would help us if you would give it a thumbs up. Then subscribe and click the bell icon so you get notification when we upload new first-person encounters. We have many more to come very soon. And by the way, if you have a suggestion or an experience of your own, please leave a comment.